Chapter 1. Lack of emotional clarity might be holding you back for more fulfilling relationships. You have probably have heard this old saying, if you don't love yourself, why should you expect others to do what you can't do for yourself? There's a lot of truth to that. Let's put it this way. If you are conflicted or confused about your emotions, there is a high chance you're not sending the right signals to people around you. They want to help and they care and love you, but they can't quite seem to reach you. I know it hurts, but the truth is, it's all your fault. You have to understand that life is not a movie. When you're watching movies, there is a script, there is a footage, and there are actors. But at the end of the day, you're watching something that is complete. There is nothing you can do to influence whatever goes on in the movie. All you can do is sit down, watch the movie, let the directors, screenwriters, and actors perform for you. That's how it works. I don't know the exact nature of your relationships, but that should not be a one way street. There is give and take. It's very easy for people to feel frustrated in their relationship because they can't get what they wanted from it in the first place. They don't bother to stop and think about their role in the relationship. What are you putting in? How do you influence the flow of the emotional signals that you have with the other person? It is fair to that other person when you put all the weight on their shoulders. Of course not. You don't want that done to you, right? This is where lack of emotional clarity comes in. Most people always focus on how they are being cheated, how they are being hurt, and how they are not getting what they feel they have coming to them. Rarely do they look at the other side. People are very shallow about it. This is a serious problem because if you want more fulfilling relationships, you need to develop the emotional intelligence skill of emotional clarity. A lot of people define this ability is strictly self serving facts. In other words, they say, I just need to know how I am feeling and what kind of emotions are going through my mind and heart at any given point of time. That's just part of the picture. If you stop there, then it's no surprise that your relationships are not living up to their fullest potential. What's the problem here? It is not just about you that a big part of your relationship, but there's the other side of the equation. You have to also pay attention to the consequences of your emotional signals and, most importantly, the clarity with which you communicate. People with low emotional intelligence suffer from a disconnect between what they feel and how the other people perceive them. They always think that it is the other person's responsibility to perceive them clearly. Maybe you are just not communicating emotionally clearly enough. Chapter 2. What you think you're feeling may not be accurate. I know that you may be feeling sad, depressed, angry, upset, or any rage of strong emotion. You are entitled to your feelings, but there's a problem. Just because you feel something doesn't necessarily mean that it is accurate. Now you are probably scratching your head. You might even be offended and thinking that I am contradicting myself. How can I, with one sentence, say that people are entitled to their emotions and take it all away by saying that they are not exactly feeling what they are feeling. What's going on? Well, here's the problem. You can't just go with your emotional state. You have to measure them by some standard. Unfortunately, if all your standards are subjective, with totally no regard to how other people perceive your emotions, you're making things harder on yourself. You set yourself up for a really sad disconnect between how you feel and how other people perceive what you're feeling. You put yourself in a position where you have these strong emotions, but you really cannot communicate them in clear enough terms so as to resolve them. Do you see how this works? Your feelings, while being completely owned by you, actually has two dimensions. There is the subjective dimension, which is what you are perceiving deep down inside, but there is also an objective dimension to it. You're going to have to express your feelings. Do this expression line up with what you're feeling inside? If there is a disconnect, then don't be surprised if people respond to you in a less optimal way. Here's the kicker, it's not their fault. Whatever negative experiences you have may be due to the fact that you are just expressing yourself the wrong way. The good news is emotional expression is a skill. You may not be doing a good job of it now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stay emotionally incompetent forever. You can work with people who care about you to fine tune your emotional expression so you can get rid of that disconnect between the strong feelings you have deep down inside and how other people perceive you. This is very important because a lot of people base their decision on their feelings. The problem with this is if you are basing it on something that may not line up with objective reality, you're going to have a problem in your hand. It's not usually for people with this issue to think that they are always bring out the worst in people. It is also not unusual for people who struggle with this problem to automatically assume that people are out to get them, so they develop some low level form of paranoia. You don't have to put yourself through that self abuse. Focus instead on honesty. Chapter 3. How much importance should you place on others' reading of your emotions? It is very easy to think that since your emotions are your own, that everybody else should butt out. I can't say I blame you. After all, everybody is entitled to their emotional states. Everybody has this capacity. Everybody has a right to perceive stimuli from the great world and come up with their own judgment and analysis of those stimulus. Oftentimes, this judgment trigger strong emotions, and I'm talking about a range of emotions. Everybody is entitled to this because this is how people process their daily waking reality. But there is a problem when people think that this is all unique. If we just look at our own perception and judgments of what's going on around us and allow ourselves to emotionally respond to these, we are putting ourselves in a bad position. Why? We end up expecting other people to basically just accept our emotional state and leave it at that. This is serious problem. Emotions are both subjective and objective. When you feel a strong emotion, you don't just hold it in, let it burn and settle deep down inside because it may cause long lasting harm. Your number one instinct is to communicate it to somebody else. That's where the problem comes in. Again, there is no issue with you feeling how you feel. Everybody is entitled to their own interpretations and analysis. The issue is, are you able to communicate your emotions accurately? You're feeling certain tics, but when you express it to other people, are they on the same page as you? You may be thinking that this is just a simple matter of self awareness and honesty. Fundamentally, you're absolutely correct, but you have to define self awareness the right way. You have to be aware in the broader context of the people around you. You have to take context into account, and unfortunately, if you do not place much importance on the reading of your emotions, you're going to remain an emotional child. You look at the world in terms of take it or leave it process. You play an impossible game on yourself. You tell yourself that this is how you feel and everybody should accept it. Otherwise, they are wrong and are bad people. You can live your life like some sort of giant tantrum. That is not a winning life strategy. Believe me, you're going to come out on the losing end each and every time. You have to place importance on how people read your emotions. You have to acknowledge that people may be reading your emotions in a completely different way from your own internal reading. Be aware of this disconnect. This should trigger red flags to you. If you see this, then it's time to look at how you express your emotions and how honest you are in perceiving your own emotions. A little bit of introspection can go a long way when it comes to better emotional communication. This can lead to better relationships. Make no mistake, you have to place a tremendous amount of importance on other people's reading of your emotions. Understand that there is a limit to this. You can't let other people dictate what you can and cannot feel. Instead, you should just look at the perceptions as some sort of gauge as to how well you communicate your own personal emotions. Chapter 4. Are your emotional coping skills preventing you from achieving career success? Do you think that you are the smartest person in the room at work? Are you able to do work that you know your co-workers cannot match in terms of volume as well as quality? It is obvious to you that you are more qualified than anybody on your team. Is it also true that you are not getting the kind of raises and promotions you feel you deserve? If any of this resonate with you, you might want to look at your emotional coping skills. Understand that the modern American workplace doesn't just turn on intelligence. It would be so simple if all it takes to be promoted and to get a raise is to be smarter than the next guy. If you have worked a day in corporate America, you know that this isn't the case. It's not unusual for people who are obviously less intellectually gifted than you to get promoted not just once, twice, but all the way to the top. What's going on? Well, a lot of success may turn on intelligence scores. In fact, in study after study, IQs have been correlated to life success. IQ tests are almost universally accepted as a good indicator of overall life success. But this begs the question, how come people with high IQs don't always become successful? In fact, if we are talking about really spectacular levels of success, I'm talking about corner office, CEO type of success. When factoring an IQ, it's a wash. Now, there are other factors. Maybe you're related to the old boss. Maybe you are a part of a right group, or you came into the picture with all sorts of advantages. But if we were to account for all of that, there is one other factor that shines forth. It cannot be ignored. This is called emotional intelligence. One key part of your emotional intelligence is your skill in coping emotionally with certain social situations. This might be holding you back. If you have tough time dealing with completion and you tend to say the wrong things, it, the wrong people, at the wrong time, don't be surprised if this all blows up in your face when it comes time for a promotion. If you find yourself always logged into some sort of negative emotional feedback loop with certain types of personalities in your office, don't be surprised if this has a negative effect on your career trajectory. These situations impact your emotional coping skills. How exactly do you deal with difficult people? How do you interact with people who seems to oppose you at every turn? How do you manage people who have obviously negative attitudes and corrosive personalities? These problems are not going away, nor can they be explained away. You can just rely in your high IQ and magically make these difficult people disappear. It doesn't work that way. This is where emotional intelligence come in. Your emotional coping skills may be preventing you from going up the corporate ladder as fast as you wish. This takes a lot of honesty because let's face it's nobody like to be wrong. Most people don't like to feel that there is something wrong with them. But if you want to make progress, you need to look at your emotional coping skills with clear eyes. Am I handling certain situation in the best way could? Maybe I don't have to react. Maybe I don't have to always pull rank. Maybe I don't have to automatically dismiss people. Maybe there is some sort of win win situation here. Unfortunately, most people are ill equipped to handle these questions, and that is why we achieve success on a fairly random basis. Sometimes we do well, sometimes we don't. Chapter 5. Are your emotional coping skills preventing you from being a happy person? Let's get one thing clear. The concept of happiness is kind of exaggerated. It really is overrated. It seems that everybody in this dog is hell bent on becoming happy. Now there's nothing ultimately wrong with that, but the problem involves definition. Let's get on things straight. In the United States and in the Western worlds, general happiness is usually defined in externalist terms. Happiness is something that you get from the outside. It doesn't come from within. It's an emotional state that you feel from within, but ultimately is triggered by factors, people, and things outside of you. You have to wake up at the right side of the bed. People have to be kind to you. Things have to work in a certain way. A lot of the things that you are expecting to happen have to happen a certain way. And then, and only then, would you feel happy. This really is too bad because if you define happiness along this similar line, you probably are not going to be happy all that often. Even if you reach that emotional state, it is not going to last long. How come? These definitions don't really position you for long lasting and truly intense happy moments. They don't, because you're not in control. Happiness either happens from time to time or it doesn't. It tends to happen at a roll of the dice or when things line up. That's how way to live your life. It's much better to look at happiness as a product of your emotional coping skills. When you focus on skills, you focus on a series of action that you can control. By being aware of what you're doing at a specific time and place, you will put yourself in a position of becoming aware of the consequences of these actions and feelings. By doing so, you will be able to choose how you feel. You will be able to choose how you respond and what to remember, what to focus on, and this can lead to a more sustainable level of happiness. This leads to control. Compare this with a person who just basically waits to see if people are going to be nice to him or her. He or she waits if certain things will line up. Maybe they are waiting for a new job or a new position to open. Maybe they are looking for a raise or a scholarship or looking to get good grades at a test. The problem is when you put yourself in a position where you're waiting for somebody else to get their act together to deliver happiness in your life, you're playing a losing game. You're not in the driver's seat of your life, and as you probably already know, life is what happens when you're making other plans. Assume more control over your life by assuming more control over you, emotions, coping skills across a wide variety of situation that happens in life. Emotional intelligence is crucial to life's success. It's high time that you make your emotions work for you instead of against you. Chapter 6. Effectively cope with toxic emotions with this one simple change. Does this happen to you? You think about a memory and all of a sudden you just feel like you're about to cry. You can't help it. It just happens automatically. Do you sometimes think about somebody who said a mean thing to you when you were in the past or did mention badly to you and you can't help but fill up with rage? In fact, it can get so bad that you are just shaking in anger. You find yourself in social situation where people look at you a certain way and you can't help but want to smack them across the face. Welcome to the world of toxic emotions. Most people are able to deal with these toxic emotions and not take actions that they will come to regret later on. That's the good news. The bad news is it's like falling on a grenade. Eventually, the grenade will blow up and it definitely burns deep down inside. Is that a better way to deal with toxic emotions? Well, please understand that this is not absolutely necessary. When you think about your ex girlfriend who cheated with your best friend behind your back and told everybody about it, you don't necessarily have to feel a sense of shame, embarrassment, and the overall aching need to exact revenge. You don't have to do that. That doesn't necessarily have to flow from that memory. Just because you think about certain things in your life doesn't mean they have to consume you or trigger negative emotions. Did you know that toxic emotion can be controlled with one simple change? Before I get to that simple solution, let me explain to you how you develop toxic emotions in the first place. Of all the things that you can remember about your ex girlfriend, ex wife, whatever, you pick certain memories. You can choose to pick other things of those things that you remember. You choose certain interpretations. All of this is obvious. You can choose, interpret, or analyze those memories a certain way. It doesn't have to lead to you filling up with anger, feeling hopeless, embarrassed, and humiliated. You don't have to go through the normal range of reactions that you have grown accustomed to. You can choose a different path, but understand that it's all choice, and that's where I would like you to focus on. You can choose your memories. You can also choose how to interpret them and respond to them. No, that's very hard at first. It's like trying to stop a roller coaster after it has reached the peak of the tracks and starts to fall at full speed. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. Let's put it this way. The more you try, the less toxic your emotional state become. Eventually, you reach a tipping point where you no longer have to feel bad about other people, yourself, and life in general. Chapter 7. How important is honesty in dealing with your emotions? What if I told you that a lot of the things you're feeling are not exactly what you think they are? In many cases, you're jumping to conclusions in terms of identifying your own emotions. I know this sounds crazy because, after all, everybody is feeling emotions and they're entitled to them, right? Well, you confusing two things. You are confusing the fact that everybody is entitled to their own emotions. Nobody can argue this. If you're feeling certain things or you're experiencing a rush of different emotions, you are entitled to that because you are equal like everybody else. Everybody is looking at the same set of stimuli and everybody is welcome to process that information and walk away with different emotions. That's okay. That's natural. That's part of the game. First of all, you need to be honest about the whole stimuli that you're perceiving. Are you looking at the whole picture? Second, you have to look at how you are interpreting it. Are there no other logical interpretations that can be supported by the same set of facts? If there are, why are you not using those interpretations? Make this process work for you, and it all turns on how honest you are with yourself. Life is beautiful. Claim that reality by increasing your emotional intelligence starting today. Chapter 8. Why emotional intelligence is as crucial as IQ for personal success. For the longest time, there is the idea that people who make a big deal of emotional intelligence are simply low on mediocre IQ people. In the minds of a lot of people, those who make a big deal of their emotional skills and sociability are essentially compensating for the fact that they have low, mediocre IQ. If only things were that simple. The truth is, when you look at any organization, chances are high that the head honcho or the prime movers and shakers of that establishment are not at the top of the IQ chart for that organization. In fact, in many cases, the most progressive and successful organizations have CEOs that have IQs way below the smartest people in their organization. The smart individuals, it turns out, are specialists. Either they work in the IT department, the planning department, and other areas. But when it comes to the actual operation of raw executive control of the organization, these individuals tend to have lower IQs. What's going on? You have to look at emotional intelligence. Success doesn't just involve figuring out what to do. It doesn't just turn on whether you know how to do things or not. Instead, a large part of success turns on whether you can really manage people who are often opposed to each other towards a common goal. You must be able to do this day after day, week after week, month after month. You must be able to scale this in the future, and you must be able to communicate this clearly not only to your team members but also to people outside your team. Interestingly enough, this skill set cannot be explained by IQ. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. Not only do you have self aware to the point that you know what your feelings are, but you are able to communicate you feeling to others in such a way that you have become more persuasive and you are able to remind them about common goals. This is how you can tell whether a leader can motivate and inspire people around them to produce better and better results. People with low emotional intelligence who are thrust into leadership position often use fear, intimidation, or grotesque and cheap rewards to get what they need. Eventually, that gets old. That organization would stagnate if it doesn't fall apart. Emotional intelligence is crucial to any organization that is aiming for the fences. Make no mistake, if you're trying to hit that home run, you need to be led by somebody who not only knows how to say the right things to the right people in the right time to produce the right results, but also who is able to do this in many different contexts. That person must also able to plan out the consequences of such emotional signal. Understand the importance of emotional intelligence because if you want to be more successful in any area of your life, you need to confront this issuer and you need to master emotional intelligence. It's not as hard as you think. It is not complicated. It is not Greek and it is not written in computer codes. You just have to know what you're doing and what you're dealing with. Unfortunately, so many people think in habitual terms. They think that once they perceive certain things that they can respond emotionally a certain way. This is why they continue to struggle and don't get the results that they otherwise have coming to them. Chapter 9. Can you really improve your emotional intelligence? There's been a long running debate in the world of behavioral and organizational psychologists regarding emotional intelligence. The issue whether emotional intelligence exists or not. A consensus of experts think that EI is a real thing. The big argument centers on what it is and where it comes from. Some people are convinced that emotional intelligence is simply just an extension of your personality. That's the problem if you're trying to improve emotional intelligence. If it's just part of your personality, then it's not much different from saying that you are just born with that emotional intelligence or you are not. This is very depressing. Study after study has shown that emotional intelligence plays a big role in overall personal success. It works hand in hand with IQ. It doesn't hurt to be born with high IQ. Don't get me wrong, this will definitely open a lot of doors for you, but you cannot rely on it alone. IQ can only go so far. You may be high IQ individual, but if you are lazy, there would be less opportunity for you. You may be able to grasp otherwise complicated concepts very quickly, but if you are unable to communicate with the emotions effectively, this inability is going to stymie your success. IQ does not exist in a vacuum. It really doesn't. It has to coordinate with other very important human skill set. Emotional intelligence is one of them. The problem with positioning emotional intelligence as essentially arising out of personality is that it becomes random. You are left with the conclusion that either you're born with emotional intelligence or you are not. This flies in the face of evidence. Why? A lot of people who start out emotionally awkward or even socially incompetent become very smooth, polished, and effective when they find themselves in social settings. In other words, they choose to increase their emotional intelligence, they chose to hone their skills. They did not wait for their built own personality based emotional intelligence to kick in. They don't wait around and took matters into their own hands. They know that they have issues dealing with other people, so they got the right information and they worked on the trait over and over again over an extended period of time until they got it right. In other words, building up emotional intelligence, if you look at it as an ability instead of some sort of built in, inborn extension of your personality, is very much like working out in the gym. Do you remember the first time you hit the gym? It was probably hard on your body because you haven't worked out before. When you hit the bench press and you put 50, 60, 100 pounds on your system, it felt like murder. But after 2 weeks of continuously hitting the weights, it got easier and easier, and eventually you reach the point where you can scale up the weights. Now, you are probably lifting a lot more pounds than when you started. The same applies to emotional intelligence. At first, it's going to be downright scary. In fact, in certain cases, it may seem downright pointless. But the more you keep at it and the better results that you get, the more you stick to it and the better you get at it, you create an upward spiral. To do yourself a big favor, understand that emotional intelligence is something that you can improve. It's not something that is set in stone. It is not something that some people are born with and most are not. Get those ideas out of your head. This has been the language of emotions. Learn the secret of how to understand and manage your emotions and discover why emotional intelligence is your key to success. Written by Sydney Morris, read by Shafi. This is Handbook of Emotions. Discover how mastering your emotions will help you achieve more in life. Written by Alarin Gibbs and read by Shafi. Chapter 1. What is emotional intelligence? Over the years, there's been so much emphasis placed on the role IQ plays in professional success that EQ has been relatively ignored. But now people are starting to take notice simply because emotional intelligence has such a powerful impact in the business world. Not only can it aid happiness, but it allows relationships to form, reduces conflict, and increases productivity. Whether you are a business executive or a low level employee, you should give some serious attention to EQ. However, plenty of people are still unaware of what emotional intelligence even is. Despite its importance, not to worry though, because we are here to inform you. The ins and outs of emotional intelligence. Firstly, it is vital to distinguish the difference between IQ and EQ. Essentially, intelligence is gained through theory. The more you study, obtain knowledge. turn into skills and apply it will determine how high your IQ is. On the other hand, emotional intelligence is a set of skills that are developed through experiences and practice. One half of emotional intelligence is all about you as an individual. As you journey through your life and professional career, you will come face to face with a variety of different scenarios, some more trying than others. Your EQ relates to your ability to be aware of your emotions as they occur, manage your behavior, and utilize your emotions in a positive manner. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is handling challenging situations and making assertive decisions that lead to positive results. EQ in the workplace also means listening and learning while effectively adapting to change. The other part is about your interactions with others, which could be considered as the most challenging. It's all about identifying other people's emotion during interactions. If you have the ability to pick up on emotions, display some empathy, and remain open minded to other views and opinions, you will earn trust and respect that will bring you more success in your career. You will be in a position to diffuse heated situations and achieve positive outcomes. Those with high EQ always seek success through the awareness and management of their own emotions, while building effective connections with others through acknowledging their unique views and ideas. It is no wonder that 90% of top performers in business have brilliant emotional intelligence. Ultimately, it isn't a case of hitting the pinnacle of emotional intelligence, then sitting back and relaxing. True emotional intelligence requires a lifetime of practicing, learning, and improving your skills so they only improve. Chapter 2. What's the difference between IQ and EQ? Most people have heard of emotional intelligence or EQ, but many don't understand how important it is to their happiness and success. Due to the advancement in neuroscience, we now know that we can change our lives for the better by developing a stronger EQ. But where does that leave IQ, the old standard? And what's the difference between EQ and IQ? Let's take a look at what each of these terms means. What is IQ? Each person has a personal intelligence quotient, which is a number that is produced via a test that measures your cognitive intelligence. You probably took one of these during your early elementary school days. The text shows how well your mind stores, processes, and utilizes information. That means if you are adept at absorbing knowledge and putting it into practice, you'll score highly on the IQ test. Your IQ is not malleable. It doesn't change throughout your lifetime. What is EQ? On the other hand, emotional intelligence, as the name suggests, is how you take charge of your emotions and how you work with the emotions of others. It combines a variety of different aspects like being self aware, being able to control your own emotions, managing how you react to difficult and stressful situations, being able to identify other people's emotions during interactions, and being able to communicate effectively with others who are different from you. Many experts now believe that EQ is even more important for success in our careers than IQ. But if you fear you weren't born with high EQ. Don't worry. Unlike IQ, we can cultivate EQ by becoming more self aware and changing our thinking and actions. If you aren't sure if you have an high EQ, ask yourself if you easily can do these things. Listen actively. Recognize and work with other people's feelings to create positive change. Acknowledge different opinions, beliefs, and experiences. Stay aware of your emotions even when they are difficult or uncomfortable. Remain calm and respond to difficult situations rather than overreact. Forge strong, meaningful working relationships. Clearly, having a vast amount of knowledge and being able to put it to good use is incredibly useful. At the same time, being aware of your emotions and working with them even when it's difficult and collaborating well with others is also vital to success in the workplace. If you want to get ahead in your business or career, the smartest thing to do is develop your EQ. By doing so, you will notice your work relationships going smoother and your network connections getting stronger. This can only help you get ahead both in the office and in the life. Chapter 3: 5 Benefits of Emotional Intelligence. Obsessing over gaining knowledge to bolster your IQ is no longer the trend because we now understand that it's emotional intelligence or EQ that leads to success until recent scientific evidence that our brain can be altered by thinking differently. People used to believe that reading books and taking exams would land them in their dream job. With our understanding of neuroplasticity, we know we can develop a higher EQ with changes in our thinking and actions. A low EQ could cause hostility and conflict due to the ignorance of other views or opinions. It could result in bad decisions from letting emotions cloud judgment, or it could prevent us from forming solid relationships, which would obviously hinder success. But a high EQ is the polar opposite. As businesses and individuals will both benefit, there are 5 specific ways a high EQ can help us lead a more successful and happy life. Navigate through tricky situations. Throughout a long and fruitful career, it would almost be impossible to avoid challenging predicaments, but those with high emotional intelligence stay strong under pressure and tend to emerge on the other side with a positive outcome. Clear communication. Making it to the upper echelons of your profession and yielding excellent results is incredibly difficult without the ability to work well with others. With an abundance of emotional intelligence, it is far easier to create a rewarding network of contacts that you can constantly collaborate and rely on. Enhance team morale. Like we have just touched on, the modern workplace relies heavily on teamwork. As the old saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. Individuals with high EQ use their management skill to gain respect so they can then aid team morale through their influence. Precise judgment. It's a very special ability to know exactly how to act or what the perfect thing to say would be in order to achieve your desired results. Now, those with high EQ can do this effortlessly, which is why they frequently get what they or their company wants from a negotiation. complete control. When it comes to controlling yourself in the workplace, those with high emotional intelligence have it all. They can handle their emotional reactions in a positive way, and they can more easily impact the outcome of interactions by being willing to understand the needs and desires of the others involved. Learn from mistakes. Some people crumble when given criticism, but people who are emotionally intelligent learn from their mistakes and utilize critical feedback to develop. Plus, they are very motivated and driven individuals, so they understand that failures are a part of the journey to success. Chapter 4: Three ways to improve your EQ. Whether you have a tough exterior which shields your emotions from the outside world, or you are comfortable enough to display how you are feeling, emotional intelligence is an extremely beneficial trait. The higher your EQ, the better success you are likely to have in your family, personal, and business life. Although not everyone is born with the natural ability to identify, control, and manage their emotions effectively. Some people are lacking in EQ, but luckily, it's an attribute that can be crafted and honed. Here are three ways to cultivate emotional intelligence in your life today. 1. Become a responder, not a reactor. Those two terms may seem identical on paper, but in reality, they couldn't be further apart. You see a reaction in a subconscious outburst of emotion towards a certain situation. On the contrary, a response is a controlled, thoughtful way of dealing with a situation. If you can get into the habit of assessing your emotions before you respond, you will be able to avoid a ton of conflict and build better relationships. For instance, if colleagues are aggravating you, give yourself a couple of minutes thinking time to compose yourself before you respond. 2. Delve deep into your feelings. We are currently in a generation where people opt to ignore their emotions rather than explore, challenge, or accept them. But the trouble with that is you will never be in a position to bolster your mental state because you will never acknowledge how you're feeling and what triggered it. The key to developing your emotional intelligence is to be aware of your emotions, control how you utilize them, and then manage them for the future. Therefore, whenever you are experiencing strong emotions, jot them down to review why they emerged and how you might respond to them and the situation that triggered them. 3. Be empathetic, not judgmental. There's a common misconception that emotional intelligence refers to your own feelings and your feelings only. However, it also relates to the way you sense, handle, and work with other people's emotions. Now, in life, the easiest option is to leave someone to their own devices. Then be judgmental when their emotions spiral out of control. But if you want to improve your EQ, you should attempt to be aware of how others are feeling and try to understand why they are feeling that way. By looking at a situation from someone else's point of view, it can serve as a reference if you ever find yourself in a similar position. Chapter 5: 5 reasons why people with high EQ easily adapt to change. Evolution is a byproduct of innovation, and life is full of innovation. With the emergence of new technology and smarter ways of working, adaptability is quickly becoming a necessity in the business world. Now, rather than suppressing innovation, those with a substantial amount of emotional intelligence seamlessly join the evolution process. But how do they welcome change so easily? 1. Assess situations from different perspectives. The number one thing to remember when change is imminent is that other people have views, opinions, and beliefs too. People that attempt to operate with tunnel vision in the workplace tend to struggle with change occurs. On the contrary, people with an impressive EQ remain open minded and are able to deal with change easier because they are willing to experience it. 2. Overcome obstacles without making rash decisions. Success in life and success in business comes from approaching change without the fear of failure because stepping into a new territory will no doubt include setbacks. Individuals that possess a high amount of emotional intelligence don't shy away from obstacles. They tackle them with a full force. Additionally, they don't instantly give up and retreat to their old ways. They reflect on their emotions, behave positively, and find a way to progress. 3. Identify how others are feeling and provide support. Adapting to a significant change, especially if it's in the workplace, is more straightforward than when everyone is rallying for the same cause. But sometimes people can revert to being introvert in group situations, which makes it difficult for them to voice any concerns. Individuals with high emotional intelligence can sense other people's emotions. They can help them express their opinion, quash any issues, and embrace change together. 4. Handle negative emotions effectively. No one has ever said change is a breeze, and there's going to be plenty of occasions where there are waves of negative emotions. Some people try to ignore them and end up cracking under the pressure anxiety places on them. But those with high EQ take a different approach. They accept negative emotions, manage them accordingly, and continue moving forward. 5. Challenge their behavioral patterns by being aware. In many instances, people find it difficult to adapt to change merely because they are reluctant to do so. They sit in their comfort zone and allow life to drift on by. Whereas those with brilliant EQ understand their behavioral patterns and notice when they are settling for their tried and tested. Subsequently, they challenge their comfort zone and delve into the unknown rather than letting change knock them off their feet. Chapter 6. 5 ways getting out of your comfort zone can improve EQ. The comfort zone. The imaginary concept which makes everyone feel secure but allows no one to fulfill their true potential in life. Now, staying cozy in your warm comfort zone is a common thing, and plenty of people find it difficult to explore unfamiliar situations. But if you want the type of success that has others in complete awe, you won't achieve it by sticking to the norm. Here are 5 reasons why breaking free from your comfort zone can improve your EQ and increase the likelihood of triumph. 1. It breeds confidence. Confidence is a crucial aspect of emotional intelligence, but it is one that remains stagnant without new experiences. Why? Because venturing out and proving to yourself you can do something is a solid way to build self assurance. Once you have put yourself in foreign surroundings, you will be confident to keep trying new things and pushing yourself because you'll know you can handle the emotions that go with it. 2. It suppresses your fear of failure. The fear of failure is something that 99% of the population encounters at some stage in their life. But learning to work with those emotions and continuing to delve into new possibilities with a sense of optimism will create resilience. You see, a core attribute of emotionally intelligent people is envisioning success and making it their mission to achieve. By getting out of your comfort zone, you will claim that attribute too. 3. It develops your adaptability. The modern business society is full of changes, so thriving in the workplace nowadays require an awful lot of adaptability. But knowing how to deal with anxiety, fear, and apprehension isn't a God given trait. It is something that is forged through experiences. If you don't step away from your comfort zone, you will never know how you will react. When change does occur, by trying new things, you will subsequently be practicing how to manage those emotions. 4. It improves your creative problem solving. Those with the high EQ don't crack under pressure. They stand up to problems by using their ability to manage their own and other people's emotion to concoct an effective strategy to overcome them. Getting to that point isn't easy, though, and is only possible if you have been through experiences previously. Challenging yourself in unfamiliar environments will allow you to gain the experiences that will aid your creative problem solving ability. 5. It reinforces your inner strength. Do you know what will add resilience to your character? Facing different challenges, experiencing negative emotions, staying level heading in tricky scenarios, and pushing your boundaries consistently. Without a certain level of inner strength, you won't be in a position to improve your EQ because tough situations will always get the better of you. Whereas with inner strength, you will be able to cope, learn, and progress. Chapter 7. How EQ makes you more productive. Every business in the world is continually on the lookout for ways to increase their internal productivity levels to avoid getting drowned out by their competition. Subsequently, the people who tend to be successful are those that are able to meet that demanded threshold. But what about those that aren't quite hitting their peak and are desperately seeking a way to boost their productivity? The answer lies in emotional intelligence. Feeling content, inspired, and passionate about your role in a workforce equate to being more productive. Makes sense, right? The more you enjoy what you do, the more efforts you will invest in it. Although reaching that point isn't all about your personal interests. It's about how well you can immerse yourself in the workplace. That's only possible with a generous dose of emotional intelligence. Not sure a high EQ can make you more productive? Check out the points below. Achieving results is a priority over emotional outbursts. Being completely goal oriented is key to being productive, but sometimes emotions can eliminate our concentration and suppress our motivation. But those who have an high EQ are able to focus on the bigger picture and keep their emotions in check. Building solid relationships with others. In a business environment, everyone should be working hand in hand to yield tremendous results. Plus, an effective working relationship with another person can pick you up when you are down, help you out in times of need, and challenge you to be more productive. Avoiding conflict by finding common ground. Confrontation and heated situations are a huge distraction when it comes to being productive, and they'll only drain all of your energy. That's why those with strong emotional intelligence avoid conflict by empathetic, considering other people's feeling and finding common ground. Listening carefully during difficult times. We have all experienced those times when we are trying so hard to be productive, but it feels like our minds are literally blank. Rather than panic and accept defeat, people with high EQ seek assistance and are able to listen carefully to find a spark that will ignite their imagination, assessing situations to produce a positive outcome. Sometime in life, it's better just to sit back and observe instead of diving head first into a situation. Assessing situations with an open mind can empower you to see things you wouldn't otherwise see and to discover a positive outcome. Chapter 8: Why Emotional Intelligence is Important in Business. Very few people realize it, but emotional intelligence is a huge catalyst for success in the business world. In fact, experts suggest that without mastering control over your emotions, you will struggle to reach the pinnacle of your profession. Essentially, it's the one thing that links your IQ to the real world. Why does EQ have such a strong link to professional success? Well, it all boils down to the way you make personal decisions, develop relationships with colleagues, and manage behavior. In a nutshell, if you are able to work effectively with others while remaining level headed even in stressful situations, you will be in a great position to push for progress. The higher your emotional intelligence, the easier it will be to navigate your way through frustration, stress, decision making, time management, and trust. All of those skills combine to form a foundation which will allow you to perform well every day. Furthermore, studies also show that those with the higher EQ earn $29,000 more on average per year. There is an incentive to improve your emotional intelligence. But if you do feel there is room for improvement, you will need to know the EQ is broken down into four main areas: two under one category, two under another. Social competence. In a workplace environment, building relationships and communicating with others is vital. The better you are able to do those things, the better you will perform. Social awareness. When you're dealing with other personalities, it is crucial that you are able to gauge their emotions and decipher how they are feeling. Everyone reacts differently to each situation. So brilliant social awareness is a wonderful skill to have. Relationship management. Once you have mastered the art of being aware of other people's emotion, you will need to take advantage of that. Relationship management relates to using other people's emotions to push communication in a positive direction and avoid tension. Personal competence. As the name suggests, personal competence focuses on your own action and the effects they have. It's your responsibility to tune into your emotions and then manage your behavior. Self awareness. Emotion is a complex thing, and you will experience a vast array of them during any given 24-hour period. Self awareness refers to your ability to identify and then stay aware of them. Self management. Being aware of your emotions is one thing, but it's another to stay in control of them. Self management is all about positively using your emotions and not allowing them to have a negative impact on your behavior. Chapter 9: How to make a good first impression using EQ. The road to the top of your profession shouldn't be a lonely one, because building rewarding relationships with a network of people is key to success. The process of creating those connections relies heavily on emotional intelligence. Establishing essential working bonds is obviously not possible without understanding other people and managing your own emotions. When you first meet someone for your work, it's important to make a good impression. If you don't have the likability factor from the get to, it's very unlikely that you'll form a long lasting relationship. Utilizing your emotional intelligence can help you make a good impression in several ways. Listen and praise. It's no secret that emotionally intelligent individuals are superb listeners, so use the trait to obtain some information about your contact. The reason for that is people don't only love people who will listen, but they also love people who feed their ego. With that being said, listen to what they have to say, learn about their accomplishment, then fire out some compliments. Avoid awkward silences with open ended questions. Who on this earth enjoys an awkward silence? You will struggle to find someone who does. So make sure you avoid them at all costs. See people warm quickly to others when the conversation is flowing, but sometimes it's difficult to maintain constant chit chat. Those with high EQ are brilliant at managing their nerves while asking open ended questions to keep the other person talking. Stay relaxed. There is nothing worse than trying to build a network of business contacts, then blowing your opportunity in the first 5 minutes with the wrong demeanor. Some people are either too stern and professional, while others are too funny and giggly. It's imperative that you find an equilibrium between the two. You want to be relaxed and smiley, yet still offer plenty of eye contact. Don't forget their name. This is a big no no, because the second you forget their name, you will undo all of your hard work up to that point. By stating their name as you leave, you will embed a personal touch into the meeting which they will remember for all the right reasons. Quickly find some common ground. Emotionally intelligent people recognize that it's far simpler to engage with someone if there's a common topic to discuss, but you will need to use your skill to decipher what the other person enjoys talking about. Dabble with a few different topics, then assess their emotional response to determine whether you have found common ground or not. Watch their body language and gauge their emotions to discover when you have hit on a bit of common ground that you can build on. Chapter 10: Using mindfulness as a tool to cultivate EQ. Many people assume that emotional intelligence is a trait that can't be cultivated. In reality, it's a skill that should constantly be developed throughout our lifetime. As our EQ improves, so does a whole host of other aspects of our lives, bringing success and happiness. But how exactly do we develop a complex attribute such as EQ? One method to do this is mindfulness. You have no doubt heard of mindfulness since it's been in the news and media a great deal in the last couple of years. Mindfulness is the act of paying attention on purpose to what is happening in this moment, paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, bodily sensation, so that you are truly experiencing your life. Most of us go through life thinking about the past, often regretting things or worrying about the future because emotional intelligence require first and foremost self-awareness. Mindfulness is the perfect modality for boosting our EQ. How mindfulness help develop EQ? Mindfulness allow us to become more self-aware, which is part of the foundation of emotional intelligence. Once we advance our emotional awareness, we can develop emotional application and management more easily. Mindfulness helps develop EQ by improving our ability to recognize our own emotions, helping us learn how to distinguish the emotions of other people in our environment, strengthening our ability to work with our emotions, even the difficult ones, such as anger, helps us begin to respond to situation rather than react or overreact. Putting mindfulness into practice. Let's say you're angry after a conference call at work, but it's a day where you need to complete important tasks. Of course, if anger is clouding your mind, you aren't going to be at your most productive. However, you can choose to pause and take stock of your emotions. Feel them in your body and allow them to be there instead of fighting them. Within a short period, you will notice them dissipate. Once you have recognized them for what they are, just feelings, you can bring your mind back to the task at hand. You only need a few moments to complete this exercise. The reason emotions get so overwhelming is that we try to push them away. Once we acknowledge them, they have less power, so we can get back to this moment and tackle the work in front of us. Each time we use mindfulness as a tool to reconnect with ourselves, we develop our EQ. Focusing on being in the present helps us learn to recognize and manage our emotions effectively through mindful thoughts and action.